She wasn't there when things got bad. I never ever saw the northern lights. Never really heard of cluster flies. Never ever saw the stars so bright. And in the farmhouse it would be alright, 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 alright. Woke this morning to the stinging lash. Every man has found the lash. Each betrayal begins with trust. Every man returns to dust. Don't ever saw the northern lights. Never really heard of cluster flies. Never ever saw the stars so bright. In the farmhouse to be alright, 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 alright.
Hey, Ceresia. Hey, Aurora. I'll be Frank. I'm 9, just Rosie. I hope I didn't miss anybody so far. I hope everybody's having a nice day. This is pre-recorded for background noise as usual, but I'll be in chat as much as possible. Sorry, we have to talk about Tim Mullen for like 2 hours. So just hang in there. I know it's going to be rough. Hey, TM. Summerman Utah Wells was reported missing June 15th, 2021, around 6:30 p.m. by her parents from the 100 block of Ben Hill Road in the Beech Creek community of Hawkins County, Tennessee. She is 7 years old today. She has blonde hair, which was shaved at the time of her disappearance. It had just grown out just shorter than a pixie cut. She has blue eyes. She was said to be 3 feet tall at the time of her disappearance. She was likely closer to 3.5 feet tall. She was said to weigh 40 pounds and be wearing a pink shirt and gray pants and was believed to have been barefoot. Anyone with credible information, call 1-800-TBI FIND or email tips to tbi@tn.gov. Summer Wells' parents, Don Wells and Candus Bly, have a quote-unquote media manager who has been told by Candus in the past that they don't want anything to do with them. Don's had good things and bad things to say about him. He says he's his best friend. Tim still goes around acting the same as he has from the very beginning, as if he is the self-proclaimed media manager, and Robin hooked him up with the family, and he somewhat kind of seemed to have stalked them and scoped them out in a way, and just, inched his way in there into Summer's case. And here he still is. What are Tim's intentions? I mean, I've always known it was not to help find Summer, so why the facade? Why not just say that you're here for Don if that's what you're really here for? Tim is not here for Don and Candus. He's here for Don, and Candus is Don's wife, so he includes Candus, in my opinion. Tim, are you a media manager, a spokesman, a peer support, all of the above? What is it? Tim says he was connected to the Wells family through Robin and being local and going to events, and he may have even photographed Candus and the kids at one point. He just doesn't remember. He says he met Don at the first prayer vigil, yet Don says they met flying gyrocopters before that, after Summer's disappearance, but before when Tim says they met. And he first ever saw Candus, Tim did, in person at the Fun Fest parade. And he was so beside himself that he says he didn't even feel worthy to walk on the same road that Candus walked on. Tim Mullen certainly is no advocate for Summer or in raising awareness for finding her, especially going along with the fact that he thinks that, quote unquote, allegedly, he thinks that Summer was abducted because that's what Don says, right? That's what Don and Candus says. And Grandma even says so. She was abducted. Summer was abducted, they say. And that's the narrative that he's spinning. He's taking things, all the things that Don's saying, and he's putting it out there as if it's fact. Oh, and he's on, news sites saying these things. It's not like he's just saying it in a comment on a video. This is totally unacceptable. If Tim is so big on the Amber Alert family term, then why do his actions not match up with his words? And an Amber Alert family is not a thing. Most Amber Alerts are caused by their family. So how are you going to make the stigma that an Amber Alert family is a family that deserves the utmost respect and support? Well, normally it's the family that's the problem. And I hate to say that, but it's true. Tim is pushing a narrative that Summer was abducted, that there's a kidnapper out there right now, and there has been this whole time since June 15th, 2021, that took Summer off her hill and has her hidden away from the world somewhere, and Don and Candus are living through hell because they don't know what happened to Summer or where she is, and they don't not only not know, they have no clue. They don't even have the smallest inkling of an idea of what could have happened to Summer, their own daughter, or where she could be, according to Tim. The only people they have pointed fingers at is everybody. And none of those finger pointings seemed serious. It seemed like they were just doing it out of anger because they were annoyed or something because people were pointing fingers at them. So they're like, well, maybe you did it. Neither Don nor Candus has ever acted like they were actually convinced someone kidnapped Summer. By name, except Fred Hill. Don blamed Dudley in the beginning, but that just always seemed like it was just because he was mad at him, and it seemed ridiculous just because of the fact that Dudley was already talked to and looked into from the very get-go. And I'm not saying Dudley's some great stand-up guy just because I don't think he took Summer. I'm just saying I don't think the dude had anything to do with it, but that doesn't mean I think he's some great stand-up guy. I mean, even he may have witnessed things that he should have reported and didn't. We don't know how well all these people really knew each other. We don't know how well Don and Tim really know each other. The only person that they actually named, Don named Fred Hill. He did say that he was ready to get Fred's throat the night Summer came up missing, and he said he went up to Fred's ready to kick his door in because he thought Fred might have taken Summer or had something to do with her being missing, which I don't personally believe at all. Because why would Don wait 2 years to make that accusation if he really was that compassionate about it and really had a reason to think that he wouldn't have just had that thought dawn on him after 2 years? Someone tell me why I'm wrong, because I want to be wrong. I want this to be a best case scenario situation, obviously, but if it was, I think we would be seeing things playing out a lot differently by now. But it's sadly so blatantly obvious right in my face that Tim is not here to help find Summer. Neither is Don or Candus or Grandma, nor to create a digital journey of when Summer was missing for her brothers. Why would Tim do that? With a history on the land surrounding where they grew up, as if they weren't already going to learn that anyways. And it's so weird. Why would Tim want to do that? Like in the very beginning, it seemed like Tim first interjected himself in Summer's case. And he acted so nervous to talk to Don and Candus. And he acted so awestruck when he finally got to meet the parents of missing Amber Alert Summer Wells, which is a very odd fixation. What's his obsession with Summer that he's so infatuated with her parents? Or is that all just an act, too? Because that's beyond unreasonable creepiness to be that fixated on being involved in Summer's family in regards to her disappearance, literally right off the bat, to the point where Tim was like weak at the knees, ready to fall over with grief by the empathy he allegedly felt for Don and Candus because their daughter, Summer, was abducted, and they're so distraught that they're living in a nightmare they will never wake up from, not knowing if their daughter that they loved so much and so dearly is being, trigger warning, sexually assaulted by 10 to 15 men every night. What the fuck, Tim? Really? You take Don's word for gold. Why? Because you say you're not getting anything out of this but the satisfaction of knowing you're helping a family in need. But are you really helping? Why are you saying things like this? Because in my opinion, using logic and what intelligence I have, I think that Tim is just here running rampant on the internet with just as much rumor and speculation as Tom, Dick, and Harry and all the critters on the farm and anybody in their comments or on their panels. Tim does not know shit, just like everybody else. Don and Candus don't even allegedly know anything. And they don't contact law enforcement regularly for updates. So even if there was any, they wouldn't know unless it was made public. And even then, they probably wouldn't hear it from the law themselves because they don't go to the press conferences. So they would hear it probably from you, Tim, or from somebody on YouTube talking about it. But they care so much, right? Tim hasn't gotten any of his information from law enforcement, not any more of it than we have. He's gotten all of his information from Don Wells and Candace Bly, Summer's parents, who are suspects in her disappearance. Tim tries to direct people who may have credible tips to turn them into the PIs if they don't feel comfortable talking to the police, encouraging people even to just leave the credible tips with the PIs through his Find Summer Wells page, which are sent not even to the PIs directly, but to a PI company, who then forwards the filtered out information to law enforcement. There's way too many hands on that. Report all credible tips directly to TBI. On that very same page, Tim also depicts a red truck that looks totally different than the one law enforcement is asking the driver of to come forward. Yet Tim depicts a much newer, different colored, different accessory, different kind of truck altogether, bigger, newer, brighter, shinier, with wood on top instead of white buckets in the back, when law enforcement clearly stated that the most important thing was the white buckets in the back because it means that they do some kind of work. Are you paying attention, Tim? Tim depicts it like a carpenter type, though. And you're wrong, Tim. You know, you're doing wrong and you know it. And another thing, stop labeling us all as YouTubians like we're all one. It's really offensive and immature, and we're all very different. And some of us all care about Summer for real in real life. And some of us actually do really feel pain for her and want deeply in our hearts for her to be found and get justice and are going to see it through until that happens. And some of us couldn't care less. and are here for their own agenda. So quit trying to create a stigma against all of us creators here on YouTube because we're all completely different. And some of us actually really do care about Summer, unlike you. I'm so sick of his bullshit. The rumors and speculation the law warns against calling in that Tim provides evidence of on his posts everywhere on all his pages, as if he's taking a shot at all of us here on YouTube talking about Summer and speculating on her parents' involvement. Tim accentuates the point, yet Tim is among the main ones spreading rumors and speculation because most of what Don and Candus says is a rumor and speculation and not verified by the law and not fact-based, and it's at the very least potential misinformation, and a lot of what Don says is different than what the law says. And it didn't take very long for law enforcement to say Don and Candus were no longer cooperating. They've said the whole time that Don and Candus and Grandma was suspects. They don't have to specifically name them. I understand what Sheriff Lawson meant when he said the family were suspects. It's pretty black and white. Lawson was asked if anyone in the family is considered a person of interest, and Lawson said everyone is a person of interest until Summer is found. Don and Candus have not been ruled out since then, and it's been 2 years, and the investigation into the circumstances leading to Summer's disappearance remain under investigation. That's the law enforcement's word, not mine. The Department of Children's Services announced in the beginning that they were involved in the investigation into Summer's disappearance, yet Tim emphasizes on the fact that the Wells had a CPS case from what he implies was a fraudulent claim that the Wells kids were running around with loaded weapons on their property, and Tim demands it as a fact that the case was closed on June 14th, 2021, and that it wasn't even true, that the kids never did that. How does he know? He couldn't know for sure unless he was shown paperwork by a caseworker. And if he was shown paperwork by Don or Candus, that truly could have been forged, and he knows that. So really, he should not be going around stating these things as fact just because Don said it. Don is a suspect, in my opinion, the top one, when he has zero proof. Then Tim goes as far as to say that this broken CPS system, which he calls DCS, this broken CPS system in Tennessee has kidnapped the Wells boys, and by no fault of Don's whatsoever. The boys were just ripped away from having any communication with their parents. Now I have to stop here. My head is literally going to explode right now. It's fuming. I just don't see where Tim gets off thinking that what Don and Candus says or does has anything to do with helping any of their children in any way, or helping to find Summer. How does Tim think using the word of Summer's parents, aka suspects, is going to help find her? That's blatant interference. It's blatant disregard for any want or need or hope to find Summer. I heard Candus called the boys intoxicated, and that's why communications were ended. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it forever or speculate on it because I don't know, and I don't go around stating that as a fact. But I certainly do not for 1 minute believe that communications were totally restricted between Don, Candus, and their children, and it wasn't by any fault of Don or Candus's. They wouldn't have gotten to the point where communication would have been severed if they would have done what they needed to do to properly care for their children in the first place. The system wouldn't be so broken if there weren't so many parents like Don and Candus caring more about themselves than their children. And that is the real problem, in my opinion. And I think it's totally bullshit and unacceptable that Tim is trying to sweep the fact totally under the rug and blame the social workers themselves for families being torn apart when the family wasn't ever built on a good foundation and was falling apart on its own in the first place, and by no fault of the children's, and by no fault of the social workers. And why should they have to suffer, the children, because their parents don't have their shit together? So you think they should be allotted more time to make that happen? The parents should get more time to get their shit together and still be allowed to have and talk to their kids. So that way a child has more of an opportunity to be injured or, God forbid, go missing like Summer because their parents didn't deserve to lose them. So that's kidnapping when a child is removed from a home for their own safety. Are you taking Don's word over the state's, Tim? Tell me how this makes sense. The state is saying the kids were in danger, they had to go. Tim's saying, no, they weren't. Don's a good dad. You kidnapped them boys. Get out of here, dude. Tim has to be getting something out of this, or he has a very twisted mind, or both. Maybe he's getting something out of this because he's sick and twisted. I don't know. But I can't make sense of it. And I'm so sick and tired of it. I just can't sit here and not talk about it anymore. Someone needs to stop Tim Mullen from spreading any more misinformation and from running any further interference in Summer's case. He's worse than the flu. He's just spreading all around like wildfire. And he's laughing at all of us because there's nothing we can seem to do to stop him. He's like the freaking Riddler. He's Enigma. Furthermore, why would Summer's brothers that she grew up with and went missing from want a stranger telling them what happened to her, which he is doing by pushing the narrative Don has contrived? What's really up with the journey videos? Why is, by the way, like Tim just acts like it was a heartfelt gesture for the boys to grow up and see these journey videos. Why the facade? That's not why you're here. Why'd you really do all that? If you're here with good intentions and truly want to help find Summer and truly care that Summer gets justice at the end of the day, then why do you feel the need to defend the suspects in her disappearance just because they're her parents? Are all Amber Alert families suspects or persons of interest? You tell me, Tim, because a lot of them are, I'm pretty sure. And you created the term. But I think most parents of a missing child that truly think their child was abducted would want their child found. They would truly be distraught and panicked for their child. They would want to spread that information around to everybody that could possibly see it as quickly as they can. As quickly as Tim spreads his bullshit around like wildfire, he could be spending that time spreading Summer's picture and name and information and making sure people have the correct information online and making sure that there's not misinformation being spread. And if there is, he could be trying to correct that. But instead, he's spreading misinformation on news sites now and on Find Summerwell's sites. And it needs to stop, really. None of them want to spread Summer's information around for everybody that could possibly see it as quickly as they can. They're more worried about themselves. If that doesn't say everything, I don't know. Tim's pages are littered with dirty laundry and junk, and none of it has anything to actually do with helping to find Summer. What he does have to say in regards to Summer in general is vile at some points. I understand suggesting the possibility that while being in imminent danger of bodily harm or death, that Summer could have possibly been or still be getting assaulted. And that could include sexually. And it is a harsh reality for a lot of children and people in general. It does happen. Yes, of course. We all know that's a possibility and pray that it's never even entered Summer's realm of existence. But Tim has no shame when speaking on such things. He just blurts it right out with no tact, no respect. He has as much couth as Don when speaking of Summer in that regard, and there is zero grace or delicacy in his words at all in regards to Summer. In the beginning, he couldn't even talk about Summer because it got him too choked up. He didn't have the guts for it. Yet he still stays, and here still he is. But when talking about Don or Candus, there must be the utmost respect. Words must be used in the correct order and capitalized, and he must be on his A game when talking about Don and Candus. As if Don and Candus are the ones in the most pain. What about Summer? How much pain do you think she lived with in 5 years? And who knows what she's went through in the past 2, and has went through every day of her life, probably. Things that Tim has no clue about. Tim doesn't know, but he's spreading Don and Candus's narrative like it's holy. And we should all stop with the hate against them. They're just a nice country family because they don't have anything they need to say in regards to what really happened to Summer. Because they really don't know, according to Tim. They just have no idea. Tim depicts Don and Candus as the happy family that he says they were before Summer went missing. Picture perfect little country family, just a little dirty face, nothing wrong, nothing to see here, right? Don, dad of the year, and Candus is the wife and mother that every family needs. Tim doesn't know. He never knew them, or did he? And if he did, then he's just straight up lying, or he's totally blind. I can see from over 400 miles away that there's at least some level of neglect going on in that home, in my opinion. I'm sick of the advocacy for suspects, along with disrespect for Summer. It needs to stop. And I can't be alone on this. Okay, so Tim is posting all these things, all these new things that I see on Newsbreak. He's now on Newsbreak, yeah. Now I know some of this is on their Facebook and findsummerwells.com, but I'm just saying it's also now on Newsbreak, and where is it going to be next? Artificial intelligence writes a poem about Summer Wells and YouTubians. He needs to change the title of that, in my opinion, because it's not about Summer Wells. It's like, I'm not even sure if it's AI generated, really. If it is, I think he added some things in because it just seems a little too ironically quirky, like Tim. Written by ChatGPT AI, August 7th, 2023. Artificial intelligence is changing, blah, blah, blah. Amber Alert young girl Summer Wells, who disappeared June 15th, 2021, decided to see if AI could express the impact social media, namely YouTube, has had on the missing girl's case. My using a popular AI website, which I'm assuming is supposed to say by using a popular AI website, they typed in a short thesis statement asking for a poem in return. The AI engine did the rest in a matter of seconds. In a matters of seconds. The family was shocked and emotionally affected when they read the poem. Oh, I'm so sure. The AI quickly, why didn't you just record it then and just put it out there? You should just read it live and showed us their reactions, because you're always telling us how they react, but we never see it ourselves. The AI quickly went out onto the internet, scanned articles, and then rapidly created a poem when feeling and emotion attached. Dang, Tim, you got a lot of typos for being a media manager. Hold on, my dog's snoring. Almost reading their minds and hearts, Tim says. Wow. As if he really knows. The following is posted on the official family Facebook, facebook.com/findsummerwells. Tim says that's the official family Facebook, which directly connects to their website, findsummerwells.com. Okay. We typed, write in free verse how YouTube ruined the Summerwells Amber Alert case. Now, okay, this is supposed to be some nice heartfelt poem that AI generated about Summerwells. Oh, and YouTubians. So it's got a little sarcasm in there too, right? But then you come all the way down here and it's just, how did YouTube ruin the Summerwells Amber Alert case? Oh, well, obviously it's just going to pull a bunch of crap from people who are talking about how they hate YouTubers talking about Summerwells case. A bunch of people that are on Don and Candus' side, probably. Way to go, Tim. You're so smart. You're so freaking smart. You just blow my mind. You've outsmarted us all. You've got us all fooled. This is a completely AI-written poem for the 1000th time, done by their computer program. In the realm where screens cast their hypnotic spell, a tragedy unfolded, a story to tell, a child's innocence lost, a community in despair. But YouTube's influence tainted the air. Jesus. The Summerwells Amber Alert rang clear, a call for help, a plea for her to reappear, but the platform's echo chamber took its toll, distorting the facts, consuming the soul. Unbridled theories like weeds they grew, twisting reality, obscuring the true. Armchair investigators spun their tales, while the heart-wrenching truth seemed to pale. The algorithm fed on sensational fear, views and clicks, the digital veneer. Genuine concern gave way to wild speculation as YouTube's allure led to a skewed foundation. I think the foundation was a little bit skewed before YouTube. Misguided voices drowned out the plea, the search for summer lost in a sea of content creators vying for fame, their narratives turning reality lame. How do you know that, though? I mean, you're representing this poem as if it was so true and accurate. Like it just read their hearts and minds. Doesn't really seem accurate to me. The Amber Alert's urgency began to wane, lost in the midst of the online domain, a family's anguish and a child's fate overshadowed by the clickbait. Wow. Yet let us learn from this cautionary tale to navigate the digital landscape's trail. Seek truth beyond the screen's allure. Hold compassion and empathy pure. May summer's memory remind us to be responsible in the way we see. For in the quest for justice and light, let empathy guide our every online fight. Okay, we could talk about that all day. Don and Candus Wells' Amber Alert family, Summer Wells. This was on Newsbreak, okay? This is ridiculous. I'll show you. If you go to Google and just type in Find Summer Wells on Newsbreak, or if you already have the Newsbreak app, Just go there and type in "find Summer Wells," and you'll get junk like this pop up. I didn't realize Newsbreak was so loose with their sources. It says this is the Don and Candus Wells family. They are an Amber Alert family. Support Amber Alert families. Pray you never walk a mile in their shoes. This is the biggest bullcrap I have ever heard. So he wants you to support all families of Amber Alert victims. Forget about the victim themselves, but support the family who 90% of the time is the reason that they're a victim. Get real, Tim. On June 15th, 2021, Summer Moon Utah Wells disappeared from her home. This Amber Alert case has drawn national and international media attention. The parents of Summer Wells also were on 2 shows of the Dr. Phil show. 2 episodes, he means. After 2 years, the mystery of her disappearance is still top priority of local law enforcement, TBI and the FBI. The Wells family continues to utilize media sources to promote the challenges that Amber Alert families face. How are Don and Candus continuing to utilize media sources? What media sources have they ever utilized to promote challenges that Amber Alert families face? What challenges do Amber Alert families face? What legal challenges that they have to face when they get caught for stealing their own child? Tim says an Amber Alert family is simply the family of the missing child that is left to grapple with emotions, social media, public attacks, state agencies, law enforcement, and all other facets of the upheaval of their lives. Now, if Tim would have said families of missing children, that might have been a little different, but Amber Alert families, I think he needs to do his research. It took me all of 2 minutes. The family writes this statement on their Facebook. Pray you never have to walk a mile in their shoes. Have they even walked a mile searching for Summer? Seriously asking, because I don't think they have. The official media sources for the Wells family posts. No one can grasp what an Amber Alert family goes through until they have it happen. Ugh. Tim, have you ever had an Amber Alert issued for one of your children? Do you even have children? Day by day hauntings, fears, panic attacks, desperations, depressions, suicidal battles. Wow. He's really trying to make people feel guilty and feel bad for them and feel guilty for anything they may have said against them. Like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize they were going through suicidal battles, such depression and desperation, panic attacks, fear, and day by day hauntings, because I've only seen exactly the opposite from them. Where's the desperation? I don't see it at all. I don't see fear or day by day haunting. Maybe depression. I don't know. You can't really see that. But apparently Tim does. Then add the vicious social media attacks online, at property, at job sites. Self-made social media investigators. See, that's why people need to be careful what they do when they go out there screaming and hollering and attacking people in real life, because then you're making them a victim. Then they have a reason to go and turn around and point their finger at everybody on here, because some of us attacked them in real life when that was crossing the line, in my opinion. Protesting is one thing, but there's a way to do it. Self-made social media investigators trying to become the world's new law enforcement in their own minds. Kind of like you, Tim. Not to mention government agencies stricken by lack of professionals embedded in a use it or lose it financial fiasco. And I think he's probably referring to, I don't know, CPS there maybe. I get so annoyed with him speaking in riddles and rhymes all the time. Just say what you mean. He has a lot of pictures with the boys in it, and I don't want to put too many of those on here. I know there might be one or two, but I changed it with a picture of Summer. But the caption says, Don Wells and Candus Wells family. Summer Wells disappeared June 15th, 2021. Amber Alert family photo by findsummerwells.com. Again, with the Amber Alert family thing. Amber Alert families need protection. Ask them. Nothing takes the pain away. Is he a spokesperson for all families of Amber Alert victims? Why can't he just be a spokesperson for one victim, Summer, and not her parents who are the suspects? He can't even do that for one Amber Alert victim, yet he's trying to speak on all Amber Alert families in general. They all need protection. Because some other parents, which 90% of abductions were by the parents, so how many of those Amber Alerts were due to the parents? But they need protection. They need lawyers and stuff. So when they go to court and they're going to get in trouble for abducting their child and causing an Amber Alert, they're human too. They need protection, right? Is that what you're saying, Tim? Because this is a bunch of crap. Tim says the number of families is growing rapidly. And so are the bullies. People like me that are calling out the bullshit are bullies. We're just all one. From findsummerwells.com, trigger warning. Okay? This is also on Newsbreak. I was scrolling through my Newsbreak a couple days ago, like I do every night. And I saw one for Summer. And then I saw there was 4 of them, which are everything I'm reading you here and now. This one made me sick. They all kind of do. But this one was really bad. Trigger warning. Summer Wells, Amber Alert families, the daily struggles. And I added the trigger warning, not Tim or the Newsbreak app. I added that. The Don Wells family continues to bring insight on what Amber Alert families go through, as if they would know. Because Summer's Amber Alert was actually different than any other Amber Alert I've ever seen, in the fact that they had absolutely zero evidence of abduction. Even though Don and Candus was saying Summer was abducted, they say they had zero evidence of abduction. Yet they still issued an Amber Alert. Amber Alerts are for abducted children. Or if there is a terrible, if there's something terrible that they learned, as they did in Summer's case, that causes the child to be in that much of imminent danger of bodily harm or death, that could tip the scales to say, you know what? Don't worry about the fact that you don't actually have a vehicle description or a known abductor. We're just going to go ahead and issue the Amber Alert because Summer is in such imminent danger because of something that they learned. Does Tim know what that is? He should probably stop. Summer Moon Utah Wells disappeared from her home June 15th, 2021. Her home sits near Rogersville, Tennessee and Kingsport, Tennessee. After returning home from errands in Kingsport, Candace Bly Wells, mother of Summer Wells, he has so many typos. Okay, so Candace wasn't returning home from errands in Kingsport necessarily. She was returning home from her day out with her 15-year-old friend, a minor boy, of one of her ex-friends that she didn't even like. They were having a falling out. Yet she went and grabbed her 14 or 15-year-old son to go drink and hang out with him and smoke vapes all day in a dirty swimming hole when they could have just went to the park itself. But they wanted to be hidden, right? After returning home, Summer's mom told police that Summer went into the house, spoke to her 3 brothers, and went downstairs. When Candus called for Summer, there was no answer. The Wells family website, Find Summer Wells, gives all information on how to contact law enforcement with tips, personal information on Summer Wells, brochures to assist the public, media contacts, social media contacts, and a blog for updates about Summer Wells. I see nothing about the TBI newsroom on here or anywhere ever for updates for Summer. It says just go here. We'll tell you everything you need to know. Now, the upcoming post, this is the one with the trigger warning, okay, guys? This is just the beginning of it. Now, this is more misinformation here. He's saying Candus told the police that Summer went in the house. She spoke to her brothers and then went downstairs. And then Candus went in and called for her, and there was no answer. But her brothers say they last saw her walking away from the home. So did they see her after Candus was already looking for her and they just didn't say anything? Or is Candus just lying? Or does she just not pay that much attention to her boys? As they said, they didn't talk to him for a while after Summer went missing. But Don says he talked to them very intently. How do they not know that their boys said that they saw Summer walking away from her home and that was the last time she'd been seen? How do they not know that? And why are they saying they last saw her going into the basement? It's totally conflicting information. Why? The Wells family website gave all that information and contacts, brochures. And then the following was posted on the family Facebook page. Now, this is all on Newsbreak, on the news, filled in there with all the other news stuff. Trigger warning. Who goes to bed each night not knowing if your 5, 6, 7-year-old daughter is being sexually abused by 10 to 15 men each night? Please support Amber Alert families. The anguish, fear, panic, psychological battle, grief, physical sickness, desperation is beyond words and emotions. No, I would say that would be for people that have had children kidnapped, legitimately kidnapped from their home, and they were cleared by law enforcement, and they know that their child was kidnapped and with somebody. Then, yeah, go ahead and support them. But to support a family that is suspicious of being involved in their own daughter's disappearance where there's no evidence of abduction, you can't group those two things in the same group. It's not the same anguish. It's not the same fear. It's not the same panic, psychological battle, grief, physical sickness, or desperation. The desperation, physical sickness, grief, all that is for themselves in this circumstance. For other Amber Alert families where a child truly was abducted by a stranger and they are truly in anguish and desperation, that is different because that is for their child. I do not see that for Summer from Don or Candus. I don't, and I never have. Very few can grasp, very few could survive it, he says. Please support Amber Alert families for the 1000th time. The number of missing children is growing. The number of families is growing. The vulnerable family members need special protection and special support. So does that include suspects? Trafficking, harvesting, body part selling, mob attacks are only a few of the torments during endless days and nights of waiting and mind struggles and heart struggles and physical struggles that these suspects go through. And I'm not saying that just because Don and Candus are suspects, that means that they're guilty and that there's not other suspects. Maybe they are looking at other people. I hope they are. I mean, I hope they would at least be looking into everybody equally, regardless of what they think about Don or Candus, just because they don't know. But Don and Candus are suspects. Please support Amber Alert families. Their children are the new prisoners of war and is spreading rapidly. Where does Tim get off saying this? Their children are the new prisoners of war. Amber Alert families, children. Which ones? Tim. Summer Moon Utah Wells Amber Alert is still active. 1-800 TBI FIND. Find Summer Wells. Now, this is another article that I found on Newsbreak. Who is Summer Moon Utah Wells? On June 15th, 2021, Summer Wells disappeared from her home. She was 5 years old. Her mother and grandmother report they were just outside the house. Forget what Grandma told the news about being sleeping. That wasn't part of the narrative, right? And her brothers were upstairs. Summer had gone downstairs, and that is the last she was seen. Forget about the law saying the boys last saw Summer walking away from her home. You can read updates, history, news links, blog posts, and other details at the Wells family official website for Summer Wells. Summer Wells is still an active Amber Alert, missing since June 15, 2021, ongoing case by TBI and FBI. The Wells family Facebook page says, imagine battling this thought every moment of every day, then having to wrestle the public and social media mob attacks. Add to this the loss of the rest of your family. Amber Alert families need extra support and protections. They are not standard policy situations. Yeah, exactly. They're not standard policy situations. So how are you going to label all families that are involved in Amber Alerts as people that need extra support and protection? And it just doesn't make sense when you look at statistics. Please let Summer Wells open your heart to this national epidemic. Now, Summer is a case that is outside the norm. Yeah, there may be a national epidemic of, I guess, children going missing, but every case is different, and Summer's is very different because it's definitely outside the norm, according to TBI. Tim says every stolen child leaves behind a devastated family. Yes, I'm sure every child that gets stolen does leave behind a devastated family. But Tim doesn't know if Summer was stolen from Don and Candus. He doesn't know what happened. And if he does, we have a whole nother problem on our hands. Hell starts at night and resurrects each morning for Amber Alert families, according to Tim. Like he would know. All tips should go to 1-800 TBI FIND or tips to TBI at tn.gov. TBI. We ask the public not to submit tips as a result of a video they viewed on YouTube or a theory they've seen posted on Facebook. End quote. Another Facebook post says, Summer Wells has made us all look at many levels of corruption in our society that most of us would never choose to face. Now let's back up here a second. Tim makes sure that he posts this. I've seen him post it more than once, and I've heard him say it. This quote from the TBI that they ask the public not submit tips as a result of a video they viewed on YouTube or a theory they've seen posted on Facebook. Well, they don't want any of that because they probably already know, for one thing, but it's just funny to me that Tim wants to emphasize on this because of the fact that he is spreading misinformation, at least potential misinformation, in my opinion. And he's saying things that match up with what Don wants people to think, but not with what law enforcement wants people to think. So, for all Tim knows, people are calling in tips based on things that he's saying that came from Don and Candus. He's got to know that. Another Facebook post says, Summer Wells has made us all look at many levels of corruption in our society that most of us would never choose to face. Don and Candus Wells will endure if they can see that Summer Wells' disappearance can somehow help others who have not had this magnitude of attention. What? So Don and Candus are going to endure. They're going to endure if they can see what that Summer Wells, their daughter's disappearance, can somehow help others who have never had this magnitude of attention. Okay, Tim. First of all, that doesn't even make sense. Second of all, what does it matter about the magnitude of attention that they're getting when they're using it to focus on themselves and they're not using it to try and help find their daughter? And they say that's what they're here for, but actions speak louder than words. Speak for Summer, yes, but let Summer speak for all missing children. And may our nation protect Amber Alert families. Okay, Tim, you really need to stop with that. Because seriously, children overall, this is from missingkids.org. It's the NCMEC analysis of family abductions fact sheet. Okay, between 2008 and 2017, there were 11,581 children who were abducted by a parent or family member. Now, Amber Alerts, pretty much because a child's been abducted, or they think it's likely that the child was abducted. They have a description of a vehicle or an abductor, typically, and in Summer's case, they don't. And Summer's case is a lot more out of the norm than most cases, according to law enforcement. So they have no evidence of abduction, obviously, and Don and Candus are suspects, and they're her parents. So that makes you think that the law is suspicious that Don and Candus may have had something to do with Summer's disappearance, but clearly they didn't abduct her. Neither one of them abducted her. Neither one of them have her. That doesn't mean they didn't take her somewhere or do something with her. The law seems to be suspicious that they did. But 5.1% of these cases remain active. 25.9% of these cases had an international component. Family abductions occurred more frequently when the children were younger. Almost 2/3 involved children between 0 and 6. Summer was the most common season. August, peak month. 33.6% of all children were recovered by police investigation. 29.7 were turned in by a family member or friend. Children had an average missing duration of 6 months. Summer's been missing over 2 years. In 2008, it was 8 months. I wonder what it would be now. We could figure it out, I'm sure, but maybe not for a while, because I don't think the statistics would just like come in that quick. Like, you would have to figure that out. And nearly all children are recovered alive, 99.7%. 47 children, which was only 0.3%, but still way too much, were recovered deceased. 87.1% of these children were homicide victims. Deceased children had an average missing duration of 3 months. So I just thought that might be interesting to some people. But what I really wanted to get to was this part right here, abductors. A majority of abductors were the parent of the child, 90.3%. Mothers were the most common abductor of the child at 53.9%. Fathers were the abductor in 36% of these cases. Abductors had an average age of 33 years. Response to family abductions from the NCIC, and they have all these stats too. 69.2% of children abducted by family members were entered into the NCIC. And you can go to this site and download the PDF and read it for yourself, but it says for Amber Alerts, a majority of these abductors were the child's father at 56.2%. Between 2008 and 2017, there were 1,311 children who were abducted by a family member with circumstances that triggered an Amber Alert. 1,311 between 2008 and 2017. These children had an average age of 4. There were 948 abductors involved in the cases. Majority were fathers. Amber Alert cases had an average duration of 23 hours. A longer time period before activating the Amber Alert corresponded to a longer missing duration of the child. Interesting. That makes sense. Nearly all family abduction Amber Alert cases have been resolved. 99.4%. So I'm just saying, like, it's typically a family member, right? So how are you going to sit here and say logically that they deserve like this, the utmost respect, and they need to be specially protected, and may our nation protect them? What about the victims? Hello? I mean, yeah, they're part of the family, but that's what the Amber Alert is for. Them, the victim, who it's for, who Summer Wells, not Don Wells or Candace Bly. They are actually suspects. I don't see how many times I have to say this, but some people really don't seem to get that. It's like it doesn't even matter, but it does. Now, this is on Find Summer Wells Facebook. It says, remember, this DCS improvement is now happening 2 years after Summer Wells disappeared, which happened a day after DCS came on the Wells property and closed a case. He doesn't know any of this for sure. Nobody does, except Don and Candus and the caseworkers, kids, you know. Yes, they were on the property a day before she mysteriously disappeared. This is why suspects are broader than most realize. What do you even mean by that, Tim? Why is that why suspects could be more people than we realize? And I think we all realize that there's a possibility that Don and Candus could have had nothing to do with Summer's disappearance. There is a possibility that they have guilty knowledge, of course, still, even yet. It doesn't mean they're totally innocent, but that doesn't necessarily mean someone else wasn't involved or mostly responsible. We realize that. We just want to know where she is. If I never get to find out what happened to Summer, that's disheartening to think about. I would love to be able to hear her tell her story one day. But what's more important is just the fact of knowing that she's going to be found when she is found, knowing that she'll get justice. Just seeing that happen would be enough for me, obviously. It should be enough for anybody. Abuse and neglect, no phone calls. This was the system that stepped into the Summerwells case in 2021, dealing with an Amber Alert family. Oh, goodness. This same system is who cut off all forms of communication by the Wells parents with their 3 sons in November of 2022. These sons were taken during the vulnerable emotional unraveling that occurs to an Amber Alert family. Oh my goodness. Tim talks like he's qualified in Amber Alert family therapy. The key phrase used by DCS and organizations such as CASA is abuse and neglect. Prove it, he says. Wow. Maybe they can. Maybe they do have proof of that. Maybe that's why the sons were taken. Dealing with an emotional, distraught family by blocking them from even an I love you phone call to their own children is a systematic projectile of abuse and neglect towards an Amber Alert family. So he's saying what the state thinks is best for the kids should be forgotten because how Don and Candus feel is more important. Wow. And then he gives a link to a couple sites. Find Summerwells. This was the system that stepped into the Summerwells case in 2021, dealing with an Amber Alert family. This same system is who cut off all forms of communication by the Wells parents with their 3 sons in November of 2022. These sons were taken during the vulnerable emotional unraveling that occurs to an Amber Alert family. I know I've already read this once, but I just wanted to read it again because it's here again. The key phrase used by DCS and organizations such as CASA is abuse and neglect. Prove it, dealing with an emotionally distraught family, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a picture of this caseworker, and I didn't want to put her face on here because I don't even know who she is. And I feel like it really doesn't even matter. July 30th, 2023. This is the Don Candus Wells family. This is an Amber Alert family. Yeah, I suppose you could say that. Summerwells disappeared June 15th, 2021. Some people only see thorns on a rose bush. Others see the roses. It is time to restore the rose garden. Okay. Thank you for all prayers and encouragements. So if the rose bush is just totally falling apart and dying off, and they're not really growing together very well, don't you think somebody should step in and help care for them so that they can thrive? If he's referring to the children, of course, but he's referring to all of them, because what Don and Candus feel is equally as important as if their children are receiving the care that they need and deserve to thrive as children, to turn into teens and young adults and live their lives and be successful. And not only that, but just to be safe and have the basic necessities. Because CPS doesn't just take your kids because, and we don't think you're really raising them right, or we don't like the way you do things, or there was too many dirty dishes in your sink. No. There has to be some kind of abuse or neglect going on. They have to be in some kind of danger. And yeah, I'm definitely not saying there's not corruption within CPS or the like systems. But for the most part, let's get real here. Do we really think CPS is to blame for the Wells children being removed from the home? Because I would have to say I disagree with that. And there he's hashtagging Amber Alert families again, July 24th. Yeah. Find Summer Wells is now on Newsbreak. Like I've been saying, I suppose I probably should put this picture first, right? It says, join us and spread the word. Thank you, everyone. And all that stuff I read was all on Newsbreak. So this website, WGMD.com, Summerwell's disappearance, new age progression pic released 2 years after Tennessee girl vanished. WGMD.com, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, released the age progression photo. Okay, it's an article that I found interesting, right? It says, I remember the sun shining, and I kept asking myself, how can my heart be so broke and it be so beautiful? And it was beautiful sunshine for 30 days after Summer's disappearance. Her father, Don Wells, recalled of the day Summer went missing in an hour-long phone interview with Tim Mullen, a spokesperson for the Wells family. And most of us probably already heard this, read this, seen it, and they're done that. He remembered June 15th, 2021 as a picture-perfect day, when Summer wanted to go on the roof with her brothers, which he allowed. He remembered his daughter as active and hands-on. She would follow her father when he mowed the lawn and roughhouse with her brothers, Wells said. So Don's depicting it as picture-perfect day, June 15th. Summer wanted to go on the roof, which I believe he's talking about actually June 14th, but it says June 15th. I didn't type this. This is from Tim. Or from the news site, WGMT, whatever. He remembered his daughter as active and hands-on. She would follow her father when he mowed, roughhouse with her brothers. Don was in jail until October of 22, unrelated DUI arrest that occurred after his daughter's disappearance. So Mullen told Fox News Digital in a statement that the Wells family had faced harassment from media. The attack against Amber Alert families continues, he said. I personally feel that Amber Alert families need extra legislative protection. The UK has laws against harassment of the vulnerable. Oh my goodness. They have had to leave Tennessee due to the endless attacks, public judging, and a practical blackballing of Don from being able to get employment in Northeast Tennessee. So, are you kidding me right now? Tim Mullen told Fox News in a statement that the Wells family has faced harassment. Okay. Yeah, obviously they've faced plenty of harassment. But Tim says the attack against Amber Alert families continues because Don and Candus are an Amber Alert family, according to Tim. Tim personally feels that the Amber Alert families need extra legislative protection. So legislature needs to get on this. and be more protective. And because the United Kingdom, they have laws against harassment of the vulnerable. Okay, well, we have that here too. He says Don and Candus had to leave Tennessee due to the endless attacks, people always judging them, and Don and Candus not being able to find any employment anywhere. Or was it because Don got a job somewhere else that he got paid better for and he didn't want to be hanging around by where people could come check on him or whatever? He wants to be able to do what he wants to do. I mean, I don't know. Either way, I think this is ridiculous, this Amber Alert family thing. And there's no reason why we need to be bothering with extra legislature for Amber Alert families when most of those families are the reason for the Amber Alert. My goodness, but they're vulnerable. No, the person the Amber Alert's for is the vulnerable one. It's just that person. It's just the Amber Alert for that person. Summerwell's Amber Alert. It's not the Amber Alert family. They don't have custody of their boys anymore. Summer's missing. It's just Don and Candus, and they're suspects. It is what it is. He's taking a really extreme approach at trying to broaden this spectrum, or maybe even to narrow it down, I guess, to make it more like one side is so strong for Don and Candus that they would literally worship the ground they walk on because they're innocent and they deserve the utmost respect, right? What about Summer? Even if they were innocent, why are you defending them so much? You could do so much more for Summer, Tim, but you're trying to do all you can to make Don and Candus look innocent and be their defense, in my opinion. And it's really weird and something feels really off to me about you. And I think it's a little ridiculous that you're using the term Amber Alert families like every other word all of a sudden, as if Don and Candus are a part of the same thing as other people who have had children who have been abducted by a stranger. Because you don't know what happened to Summer. And if you do, you need to be sitting down and having a serious talk with the TBI, which I doubt you would if you did know, or you would have by now. CPS removed Summer's 3 brothers from their parents' home following the 5-year-old girl's disappearance. Wells' wife, Candace Bly, told police she last saw Summer at their rural Rogersville home on June 15, 2021, after she came inside from planting flowers with her grandmother in the yard. Wells and his wife maintained their belief that their daughter was kidnapped from their home in the presence of her family, who did not witness anyone at the property at the time. Wells said in his interview with Mullen that Summer's brothers were the last to see her at the house that day around 6 p.m. Not blaming them or nobody. We blame the one who snuck up here and took her from right under our noses. We blame the kidnapper, he said. Took Summer from right under their noses, as if he was there. And he keeps using the word kidnapper as if he just knows somebody came up there and kidnapped her, even though it's so unlikely and there's no evidence of it. He still says it. Well, who do you think it was then? Like, you really need to put your thinking cap on here. The Wells family also posted a YouTube video on June 15th featuring news segments, interviews, and photos regarding Summer's disappearance. The TBI said in a June 14th statement that the agency is continuing to chase every lead in order to find Summer, in what it described as one of the most exhaustive and involved missing child cases TBI has ever investigated. And it's outside the norm. They say we won't stop searching for Summer until we have answers. The TBI. Summer was last seen wearing gray pants, a pink shirt, and was possibly barefoot, according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Summer remains part of an active Amber Alert. Investigators say they have served numerous search warrants and dedicated thousands of man-hours on the case over the past 2 years. Bly's sister, Rosemarie Bly, was reported missing from Wisconsin in 2009 in a case that remains unsolved. Authorities are asking anyone with information about Summerwell's whereabouts to contact the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office at 423-272-7121 or the TBI at 1-800-TBI FIND. Okay. And then this was another, I've actually posted this on a community post. It says the DCS needs help. They need funding. They need employees. The state of Tennessee must fund and fix this broken system. How can we fairly care for our children and still practice legal parental rights if we cannot hire qualified and experienced employees? And personally, why are we not allowed to communicate with our boys if there is no case or charges against us? We are the parents. Isn't this still the United States of America? So you think they have to charge somebody with something and make a case against them so that that's the only way they're not allowed to communicate with their children? So everybody that can't communicate with their child has to be charged with something. I don't think that's how it works. I think if you're not charged with anything, you got really lucky. But that doesn't mean you still won't be. It says, fix broken system. Let us talk to our children. We are an Amber Alert family. Don Candus Wells. So I guess Tim just created a signature for them. Wow. So the problem here that Don is implying is the system should raise our kids and they need to do a better job so that when the parents are failing and they, the state, have to step in and help the children, the parents should still have all the say-so in what happens with their children. The state just takes care of them and gives them a place to stay. But Don and Candus still get to communicate freely with them. And this is not the news article anymore. This is just some notes that I wrote. That's what Don is saying that he wants, is for him and Candus to still get to communicate freely with the boys, even though the state's saying that's not in the boys' best interest. And the federal government probably would too. If the children are reasonably in some type of danger of abuse or neglect, or their needs simply weren't being met, there was a reason that a judge thought was reason enough for all of those 3 boys to be removed from that home. So whose fault is that? It's not the children's fault. The children didn't ask to be born into that home. It's not CPS's fault. They're just doing their job. It's not the state's fault. They didn't raise Don or Candus, and they didn't give birth to any of their children. This is about the children and their safety and their well-being. This is not about Don and Candus's rights as parents to children they don't have custody of. And it's definitely not about Don and Candus's feelings. There's a reason they don't have custody of their children, and it's not because Don asked CPS to take the children because he thought the home was dangerous because of backlash from social media. I doubt that. There is another reason besides that, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't know that for sure, but that's just my educated guess. Either way, it doesn't really matter because CPS did what they were supposed to do and probably what was best for the children at the end of the day. There's no reason why Tim Mullen needs to be spreading this misinformation around as if it's fact just because Don and Candus said it. Potential misinformation. They are not law enforcement, they are suspects, and Summer deserves better than that. It's not fair to her. You don't know what she had to go through, so you should stop assuming she had a great life with Don and Candus because you have no clue. You can take Don's word for it if you want to, but you don't need to convey it to the public as if it's gold and not even talk about Summer with as much respect as you talk about her parents who are suspects in her disappearance. Who else has been named? Nobody. And he posts this stupid picture of a cell phone in a graveyard with a knife with a monster face. And it says, people who call the Wells act all friendly, squeeze them with questions, and then play the private phone call on YouTube for the world to hear and dissect are another reason Amber Alert families need protective laws like the UK has. Preying on the vulnerable and then blasting it to the world without consent is. The laws are coming. Really? Okay. Well, unfortunately, the laws are the laws for a reason, and yeah, sometimes there needs to be a change, and I don't agree with all laws either, but you're saying things that don't really quite make sense because the laws that you said before that you wanted us to have for Amber Alert families here to protect them from harassment because they need special protection like they have in the UK, we do have laws like that here. Don and Candus are suspects. They're not an Amber Alert family as if they've fit in with all these other parents who have a child who's been abducted. Like you're trying to make it seem like them. Because you don't know that for sure. Yeah, abduction was still on the table the last we knew, but they had no evidence of it last we knew either. And Don and Candus are still suspects. This says, please support Amber Alert families. The anguish, fear, panic, psychological battle, grief, physical sickness, desperation is beyond words and emotions. Very few can grasp, very few could survive it. And we've read this before. Please support Amber Alert families. The number of missing children is growing. The number of families is growing. Okay. The number of families is still the same. The number of families that are involved in Amber Alerts might be growing, but the number of families that have children that are truly abducted by a stranger, I pray, isn't growing. If it is, that's alarming. Is Summer a part of that group, and Don and Candus a part of that group as well? Can you even group all of those people together as one? Because every case is so different. And Summer's case is so outside the norm anyways. He says the vulnerable family members need special protection and special support. So, the vulnerable family members of Amber Alerts, who are typically the ones involved in the children being abducted, they need special protection and special support. That's what Tim says. He says trafficking, harvesting, body part selling, mob attacks are only a few of the torments that, Don and Candus have to suffer, along with heart struggles, days, nights of waiting, mind struggles, physical struggles. How does he really know that? Are they just telling him that? And he's creating a trademark for them now? Please support Amber Alert families. Their children are the new prisoners of war, and it is spreading rapidly. Signed, Amber Alert families. I think he's really pushing this. And again, here he posts on July 21st at 5:01 a.m. He's up posting this. Who goes to bed each night not knowing if your 5, 6, 7-year-old daughter is being sexually abused by 10 to 15 men each night? Please support Amber Alert families. That makes my stomach turn. The anguish, fear, panic, psychological battle, grief, physical sickness, desperation, blah, 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 what we just read. It's disgusting. He's supposed to be the face of Find Summer Wells online. And he's saying things like this and trademarking an Amber Alert families, trying to shift all our perspectives to think something that he's like trying to fit things together that don't even go together. So this one I had on a community post too. It says approximately 130 people are trafficked worldwide every hour. Most of these are children. Over 1 million children are trafficked for the sex trade every year. Approximately 30 million children have lost their childhood to human trafficking in the past 30 years. Some children forced into human trafficking are as young as 4 years old. 4 million people are living in forced marriages. This is slavery. Where is he getting this information from? And is this like, yeah, he says he does say worldwide, but where does he get this from? And he signs it Amber Alert families. Like, does anybody else see what he's doing here? He's like totally being, he's trying to totally shift everybody's perception of Don and Candus to think that they fit in this category of people that have had a child that's been abducted by a stranger, and they're so distraught and beside themselves because their child's been abducted by a stranger. Yet he's not doing anything to like advocate for Summer in that regard. It doesn't add up or make sense. Just like Don and Candus, their narrative and their story doesn't add up or make sense. Neither does anything Tim says. They're perfect for each other. Candus doesn't even seem to like Tim at all. She never has. Seems like it's really Tim and Don. Oh, Tim welcomes criticism, you guys. He posts stupid stuff like this, airing his dirty laundry. Of JLR, this drama, Wish I Was King, causes endless problems with his National Enquirer style ramblings and make-believes. Another example of what Amber Alert families must continually put up with. This link tells you all you need to know about him. And it's Wikipedia, Jonathan Lee Riches. I'm not the biggest fan of JLR, but he doesn't need to be airing out his dirty laundry on Find Summerwell's page. And it's just ridiculous. He does it for Chris McDonough. He does it with other people, several other creators. Has more stuff about other creators on Find Summerwell's pages than he does about Summer. Now, Ohio and Texas and California, top 3 most Amber Alerts by state. I don't know if this is 2023. He's just got random stuff posted on here, statistics about children who have been abducted, Amber Alerts. The meandering of criticism against the Wells is such old news that its useless boringism only propagates the intense character weakness of the individuals who thrive on it. Okay, let me back up. The meandering of criticism against the Wells is old news. That it's such old news that its useless boringism only propagates the intense character weakness of the individuals who thrive on it. Okay. Why don't you just say, if you're going to criticize somebody, you can't, it's like the pot calling the kettle black. Like, I feel like there's just a better way to say it than like his weird way of like riddling and rhyming things and just making up words. And he just annoys me, to be honest. He says, do something valuable and go watch the new movie Sound of Freedom, and then maybe you'll grasp a fraction of what Amber Alert families battle daily in their minds, hearts, and stomachs. Do something useful. Discuss, share, and encourage others to watch this movie of the growing epidemic. So he's saying Don and Candus would, that's like their story, I guess, or something like that. I don't know. I didn't ever see Sound of Freedom. I would love to. I heard it's really intense. Human trafficking is slavery, yeah. This includes 5-year-olds. It's bigger than any of us realized. I think a lot of us around here actually do realize it is kind of a big thing, especially in that area, unfortunately. Tim says this is where Amber Alerts and Amber Alert families reside. And Tennessee is number 4 in the top 10. So this is where Amber Alert families reside. Okay, well, good to know where parents are abducting their own children that they no longer have custody of. Thank you for letting us know, Tim. All right. Then Tim says, we have a question. What's the question? And then this stupid picture of Don under the bus that says proof that YouTubians really have thrown Don under the bus. Oh, so funny. Don actually threw himself under the bus. And then on March 31st, this was back a while ago, this isn't new, but this one says, I mean, a lot of this, these images here, this is the last of what I was going over, just a lot of the stuff that he was posting that I just thought was ridiculous. He says, thank you to everyone that helped respect the Nashville sorrow and understanding how grief can reignite grief in others. As everyone saw within hours, my request was vindicated by the heartless behavior of a YouTube channel manager who broke nearly every rule and law by accusing Mrs. Wells with such a horrific event in Nashville. He's talking about when JLR posted a picture joking around saying it was Candus, which that was in really poor taste. He says this is exactly why I asked mainly the digital thug behavior people to go quiet that day and not continue the pounding of Don and Candus. Okay. I never said to quit mentioning Summer Wells. Even though requesting this that morning, I was still amazed and disgusted how fast the law breaking attack happened anyway. I will leave the post so new citizens just entering this case can see what the Wells have gone through since June 15th, 2021. Well, that's great. Hopefully they will also see this. Thank you again for the majority who have wisdom, prayers, kind-hearted, common sense, and love for God's fellow humans. Signed, Tim Mullen. Okay. That's just ridiculous. Okay, and then there's the guys from the behavior panel. Oh my goodness, I can't think of their names off the top of my head. It's been a really long day. Scott and Steve, maybe? I can't remember. I'm like drawing a blank. So they seem pretty buddy-buddy with Tim Mullen though, right? Kind of makes me wonder, I'm not gonna lie. I wish I didn't. But, whatever. Many emails, texts, calls, messages, and YouTube videos keep asking about bringing in outside search organizations. The case of Summer Wells is not cold. The TBI and FBI are in charge. That's all I can say. Be assured that the case is not cold. As I mentioned, TBI and FBI are the key players of the case with all resources available. Hawkins County is separate. TBI is the state, FBI is federal. Yes, we know that, Tim. Thank you. They're the best of the best. Cold Case Foundation, for example, this is his jab at Chris McDonough because he always has to go there, would have to be contacted by them. But Cold Case Foundation is small scale compared to the FBI, so I doubt the federal agency would ask them. That doesn't mean that Don and Candus can't still work with them if help is being offered. Just saying. They still turned it down either way. It's not like they really knew that. He says, respect order and prudent privacy. FindSummerWells.com. Really? Okay. Where's the respect? Definitely no order. And prudent privacy? Well, I mean, Don sits on the toilet unalive. So, I mean, He didn't really care about privacy for any of his kids. So why does it matter for them now? Then he posts this disgusting YouTube channel. This headline is a lie. Josie, which he spelled wrong, I'm pretty sure. Wyatt and Waylon, he says. And Summer, do not believe this trash. See, saying Summer and her brothers, if you ever see this, don't believe it. And Summer's army. He's saying, because Doug said Don and Candus Wells blamed their 3 boys for whatever happened to Summer. And he says it's a YouTube filth channel. I don't go over there really. Not saying I never have. I go everywhere where people are talking about Summer, whether I like them or not. I still go into their chats sometimes, but yeah, I really wasn't even going to say the boys' names. I didn't really mean to read them out loud like that, but I do think he spelled the one name wrong. And I would hope they don't see this, to be honest. We thank everyone for your encouragements and deep compassion during this intense time of grief, especially next week, concerning the overwhelming loss and disappearance of Summer 2 years ago. If the family is quiet, it is because the anguish is physically and mentally expiring to their limited strength. It has taken a toll beyond words that very few have had to endlessly suffer. The commodity of heartfelt compassion is an ever-decreasing character trait in this world. So when it arrives, its value is more important than gold. Okay? This next week, peace and rest is vital for the Wells. Prayers for their health and a relief from added pressures is vital. God bless each of you. Signed, Tim Mullen. So the commodity of heartfelt compassion is an ever-decreasing character trait in this world for Summer. So when it does arrive, its value is more important than gold. You're right. But giving that same compassion to suspects in her case and setting her to the side and saying that's valued more than gold and that they need peace and rest because it's vital for them and people should pray for their health and relief from any added pressures. What about Summer? When is she going to get some relief from all her pressures? When is she going to get some peace? Because she's the one that's more important than gold, not Don and Candus. I'm sorry, but Summer is the one that the Amber Alert is for, not the entire family. The DCS needs help, he says. They need funding, they need employees. The state of Tennessee must fund and fix this broken system. We already read this one. And this is Robin. I don't really know what she's doing there. Who knows what Tim said to her. Then Tim says he's looking for a lawyer. A professional lawyer that he can recommend to the Wells. He's requesting it on his own, not as a family spokesperson. The lawyer must be skilled in defamation cases, blackmail, false representation, privacy issues, be the official lawyer for the Wells for working with the Department of Children's Services, private matters, and likewise represent the Wells for the ongoing Summer Wells case. Naturally pro bono publico is a dream worth dreaming for such a national high-profile case. It's really not a national high-profile case, but reality may require otherwise, he says. The Wells are in desperate need of an independent professional lawyer. Send me only private messages. So, did they end up getting one and they're keeping it private? Gotta wonder. Lawson did say they had lawyers. Why would he say that if they didn't? He posts about the Child Advocacy Center of the Third Judicial District receiving the reward fund money. He says they are victim services, including a family advocate, coordination of the CPS investigative team, child-friendly interview rooms with closed-circuit TV, counseling, priority access to mental health systems, education, and training coordination, school and community prevention and intervention programs, victim court preparation, college field service credits for social service students, and an information service. All services are provided on a child-friendly building, in a child-friendly building. So for anyone that didn't know, now you do. It's a good cause. I often think of the uncountable times I've heard Don say how much they love their children, each one of the boys, Summer, and how much they miss them all. So often they say how they pray that none of the children blame themselves for whatever happened to Summer and the temporary breakup of the family. Temporary, he says. As God says, I will restore, says the Lord, because Don says he'll see Summer in the resurrection, so, oh well, right? And Tim says maybe this spring will be summer and the home will once again be filled with the sounds of 4 children. Well, I doubt that. This was back February 28th. It's funny how Tim talks about how, Don and Candus act these certain ways and say these certain things all the time. Like he doesn't know any different about them or of them. But we all have seen a totally different side than what he portrays. None of it makes sense. I think Tim Mullen's just as sketchy as 423 Chase. He posts this stupid picture. It's just like a joke. Like, doesn't even make sense. I don't know why he puts stupid things like this on here. It says near future game show, facts don't matter. And it says, yeah, right, facts don't matter, right, Tim? Because you're taking the word of a suspect and posting on news sites as it's a fact. Talking to Fox News like it's a fact, what Don says. Everyone needs to be supportive of them and we need to vote in new laws. Right. Okay. Now, honestly, that was really all I had prepared for right now, and I'm kind of running out of time anyways, so I'm going to go ahead and go, but I do appreciate you all being here, and I am sorry that we had to sit here and talk about Tim Mullen for this long. I know it's aggravating and annoying and frustrating, but I had to get it out of my system and put it out there because I am so sick of people thinking Tim Mullen's just a joke when he's actually running around being dangerous. It's not like funny at all, really. I mean, it's kind of funny, like sometimes some of the jokes I've heard people make about him, I'm not gonna lie, but it's really not funny. He's seriously dangerous. He's playing with fire and he needs to stop. Love you guys. Thank you for being here. Justice for Summer Moon Utah Wells. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. And I hope everybody has a nice day. Justice for Summer Moon Utah Wells. Cancel Tim Mullen.